So a certificate of ownership issued by a private company is not title to land. It doesn't matter what it says.
It's not a legal document.
A certificate of title issued by a private company or a self-help group or, I don't know, you'll find a lot of share certificates out here issued by Buendado self-help group. It's not a title document.
Oh, man.
So for as long as you know you're holding such a document, just know that the government does not recognize that, because a share certificate is printed in cyber cafes.
Yes.
Just the way you'd go and design a birthday card and get it printed is the same way those companies go to a cyber cafe and design a share certificate and get it printed. If you intend to own property, buy it in your name. Do not use proxies. For example, I see people, especially people in diaspora, sometimes there's a tendency to buy property in the names of someone here. So someone maybe buys a property in their mother's name, hoping that that property is theirs.
Yes.
A lot of challenges could come with that, because even though your siblings know that you're the one who bought this property, if God forbid your mother passes on, this property will be up for grabs by the rest of your siblings, according to the law of succession. 2, be represented by a competent conveyancing advocate.
Yes.
Because then they have done this kind of transaction and they know how to mitigate these risks. So there are documents called undertaking. So you can request the bank to give you an undertaking that once this and this amount is paid to this and this account, you will give us the title document within this and this. There's a way lawyers know how to go around to mitigate that risk.
Yes.
So that's not the kind of transaction to do it Kenyeji or, at your local.
Yeah.
It is not. Yeah. It is not.
Yeah.
Never, and this one should be put on a billboard.
Yeah.
Never initiate a transaction if you haven't figured out how you will complete it.
Yes.
Why am I saying that? There are a lot of times you find people committing to a transaction or to a purchase, and they sign the paperwork, they pay the deposit, and they are very optimistic that they'll finalize. Maybe it's a transaction where you're paying purchase price in installments, or even assuming you're not paying installments, is this something that you thought you could finalize? Then something happens and you're not able to finalize. Again, we say a lot of things happen. You could lose your job, you could lose your business, you could discover something about this property and decide you do not want to go ahead with it. Or you could commit thinking that there's a institution that would give you financing, maybe a bank. Then they refuse to approve the facility for you. So a lot of things could happen. And so that you're not caught up in those things, plan your purchase from A to Z before you commit, before you pay a deposit. Why am I saying that? Cancelling a transaction as a purchaser can be very punitive. Most agreements, most standard agreements say if you're a purchaser, you're buying, and you default such that the sale does not complete, you forfeit 10% of the purchase price.
Yes.
And 10% can be very substantial. Literally, there's a transaction I'm doing right now where the consideration on the purchase price is 68 million. And now when we're doing the default clauses, do you know if this sale does not go through because of the purchaser, they'll forfeit 6.8 million.
In today's conversation, we are going to talk about how to get the most value out of your real estate investments. And the first one we have on set today is someone who is not new to you and Tribers. The first time Wamuyu was on set with us was last year in 2023, where we had a whole conversation about how to buy land, how to avoid being conned when buying land in Kenya. And so she taught us the whole due diligence process while buying land in Kenya. The second time she was here, which was in November 2023, she taught us all the do's and don'ts when buying an apartment in Kenya or when buying an apartment in Nairobi. And she's back here, yes? And I'm so excited because of the mind-blowing things she's about to teach us again today. But before I let her introduce herself, I would like to highlight a few of the things that she taught me or she taught us in her last 2 videos, just to encourage you to go back and watch those 2 videos, and which are linked either somewhere here or there, or I also put them in the description box. So for me, one of the most mind-blowing things I learned from Wamuyu, the last conversation, is that when you're buying a piece of land or when you're buying a property in Kenya, she recommends that that you do not, ideally, you shouldn't send the money directly to the seller of the land or to the seller of the property. Ideally, you should send that money to the seller's lawyer who holds that money professionally in a professional account. And so when the due diligence or the whole process is completed, then that money can now be wired to the seller. That protects you as an investor. The other thing is, which was also very shocking, is when she talked about matrimonial property, right? Where she said that if you ever buy property when you're married, if you ever buy property in the context of a marriage, that the court assumes, or legally it is assumed that you bought that property in trust, right? In trust for that family or for your partner. The other thing I learned is that she recommends that when you're buying an off-plan property, right? When you're buying an apartment off-plan, and off-plan is where you're buying the property as it is being built. She recommends that you should make your payment based on milestones. Yes, you shouldn't just give these people a lump sum of money. You should make your payment based on the milestones. And something else is, she says that you should always have a lawyer. Why? So that the lawyer can draft a sale agreement that favors you as the person who is investing or as the person who is buying. And one of the things she taught us, which I also realized that I had made that mistake when I was buying my first property, is that your lawyer should make sure there are default clauses on your sale agreement. And for example, one of the very most important default clauses is, what happens if you're buying an off-plan property and it is not completed? What if they complete in 10 years? What if they complete in 20 years? What are you supposed to do? So those things should be very, very clear in your sale agreement. And that is why I always feel very excited to keep inviting Wamuyu on this platform, because she keeps dropping gems, right? She keeps teaching us. And before I let her introduce herself, I'm going to introduce myself. You know me, right? My name is Agatha from the Wealth Tribe, and this is where we learn how to build wealth. You know it together. Welcome, Wamuyu.
Thank you so much, Agatha, for having me. As always, it's such a pleasure to be here on this platform.
Yeah.
Talk to Wealth Tribers, because Wealth Tribers are interested in real estate. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah.
But just by way of introduction, my name is Wamuyu Kanyiri, an advocate with Wamuyu Kanyiri and Associates Advocate.
Yeah.
And today, as she has hinted, we are going to learn about what you can do to get the most out of your real estate investments. And we're really excited to have this conversation with you guys, and we hope that you will be able to learn something from it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that you said that they are interested.
Yes.
Because if you guys were not so engaging with our content, we would not keep on doing this. So we really appreciate the fact that you ask, you contact her, you call her, you DM me. And so that's why we are here again. So Wamuyu, how can we get the most of our real estate investments? Teach us.
Okay. I think for this one, we can even divide it into three ways, into three categories.
Yes.
The first one being the acquisition. Acquisition is now how you get to obtain or how you get to acquire or get this property as yours or in your name.
Yeah.
The second one, after you have acquired, how you maintain it throughout the time when you own this property. And lastly, there's how you either dispose it or you preserve it to benefit your loved ones, the people, the children here for a lifetime,
Yeah.
And at some point that lifetime comes to an end. So we should be very intentional about having the things that we have worked for all our lives.
Yes.
Benefit the people we love.
Yes.
And gather you'd be surprised the amount of billions that are being held by the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority because of people who worked very hard throughout the term of their life, put some investments together, made a lot of money, bought a lot of shares, bought a lot of parcels of land, but because of not having put their affairs in order by the time they are, passing away, a lot of these assets end up being held by the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, or some even just get lost to, unscrupulous people who don't care to report that they are holding unclaimed assets.
Yeah.
So what we are going to learn today now will encompass how to obtain real estate investments well, how to maintain them, and how to dispose or ensure that they benefit the people you care about the most after you've left this world.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's go.
All right. So again, starting with acquisition, of course, that's the first step of how do you get to acquire.
Yeah.
And for this, I think if we were to talk about land, we have a very comprehensive video, and Agatha has referred to it, that we did about when you're buying a vacant piece of land, what are the due diligence steps you're supposed to make?
Yeah.
How do you go about signing the paperwork? How do you go about paying for that piece of land? How do you go about doing the registration, paying the taxes, and getting your final title document?
Yes.
Again, if you're talking about apartments, again, we have another video where we talk about how do you do the due diligence? How do you do the paperwork? How do you make the payments? How do you inspect the apartment after it has been constructed? All that. And for the one we did for apartment covers both when you're buying from a complete development and when you're buying off plan.
Yes.
So without going into much details, I think those items have been comprehensively covered in those videos, and Agatha is going to link them in the description. So maybe I think just to add something that I may not have maybe talked about very comprehensively when you talked about buying vacant pieces of land. I think the one thing I would want to add to that would be to avoid untitled parcels of land.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of land in this country, in different counties, that are not titled. And the reason why you'd find a property is not titled is because probably the person who owned that piece of land, their family never did succession to ensure that individual titles are available for subsequent transactions. So that's one way.
Okay.
That there's a title somewhere that belonged to, the people way back.
Yeah.
That succession was not done, so transfers were not done, so you end up having a piece of property without titles. Again, we have scenarios where the people who sold that property never did subdivision and processed the titles. So now it ends up that someone acquired without a title, so they keep selling to the subsequent people without titles. And now it's under that where you find some real estate companies coming up with some things they call share certificates.
I've had
or
them.
Certificates of ownership.
Yeah.
So a certificate of ownership issued by a private company is not title to land. It doesn't matter what it says.
It's not a legal document.
A certificate of title issued by a private company or a self-help group or I don't know, you'll find a lot of share certificates out here issued by Bwendado self-help group. It's not a title document.
Oh man.
So for as long as you're holding such a document, just know that the government does not recognize that, because a share certificate is printed in cyber cafes.
Yes.
Just the way you'd go and design a birthday card and get it printed is the same way those companies go to a cyber cafe and design a share certificate and get it printed. So land is registered by the government.
Yes.
For as long as the document you think is a title document is not issued by either the national government or the county government, that is not a title document, and you should be very wary when doing transactions which involve those documents.
Yes. So point one, avoid untitled land.
Yes. The other instance of untitled land, we have titles that are allocated by the city councils.
Okay.
So like in Nairobi, there are a lot of properties that you'll hear letters of allotment.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
You may have heard of land where there's no title, but there's a letter of allotment.
Yeah.
Those ones are a little better than share certificates.
Yeah.
Because once they originate from the government.
Yes.
Or an agency of the government or a norm of the government.
Yeah.
So the government recognizes that this parcel has been allocated to person AB, even though a certificate of title has not been issued. Again, it's not very recommendable to deal with those because there's a process that you'll still one day have to undertake to process their certificate of title, and it can be very expensive and very lengthy. So in as much as reasonably possible, only go for titled pieces of land, a land that has a certificate of title or a title deed somewhere. Yes, so that's what I think I would want to add on that for buying vacant property.
Yes.
And now it covers that, avoid untitled parcels of land.
Yes.
Other than that, the other types of land or parcels of land that you should probably avoid are properties that are subject to subdivision.
Okay, what does that mean?
Now, it means there are a lot of companies, real estate companies, or even individuals they'll go somewhere, they'll find a 20 acres big tract of land, they'll buy it, they'll start selling. But now what they're selling, so this is a 20 acres piece of land, and they're selling, say, eighth is an eighth is an eighth of an acre.
Yes, an eighth of an acre,
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know why, but a lot of them avoid just doing getting a surveyor, doing the subdivisions, processing the individual titles, now offering it for sale with individual titles.
Yes.
So some of them, it's because probably they don't have the finances, so they want you guys who are buying to finance the division.
Yes.
But the problem that comes with that, so then at that point, what they will be presenting to you is a mother title. And a mother title is not good enough. And when I say it's not good enough, subdivision is a process that takes months, sometimes years.
Months? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the problem when you commit to such a transaction is that the period to complete then becomes prolonged.
Yes.
And the longer the completion period, the more chances that things could go wrong.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because again,
time equals risk.
Time equals risk.
Yes.
And you remember we mentioned in our first video that this is an industry that is not regulated.
Yes.
Literally, I could be running a real estate company today. Tomorrow, I think this business is not taking me so well. I close down, and tomorrow I'm doing manufacturing. I close down that office.
And there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. It has happened a lot of times.
Yes.
Or I could just, maybe we are doing this business in partnership with another person. Then tomorrow we fall out. And the next thing you know, I have started another company, and my partner has gone and started another company. And now you come, and what is left from the company that told you is a shell.
Yes.
What do you do?
Yeah.
So again, the idea is to limit the time for completion as much as possible.
Yes.
For land that have already titles, that have processed titles, and all that is involved in the process is the transfer of title from now the name of the seller to the name of the buyer. Average, it shouldn't take more than 30 days at least.
Okay.
To do the transfer process. Of course, if you are, keen on finalizing the process fast. So that would be ideal because, again, in 30 days, probably not much would have changed. Changed the circumstances.
Yeah.
But if I'm telling you and give you a title in a year or in 6 months, a lot could happen in between this time.
Yes.
The idea is, as much as possible, stay away from undivided
pieces of land.
Ask if someone is selling you an eighth of an acre, let them give you a copy of title reading 0.04 hectares.
Okay.
Now, titles are usually, we know acres. Everyone measures land using acres. Either an acre, 2 acres, half an acre, an eighth, a quarter. But then most titles, or rather I think all titles, they don't make reference to acres. The way they demarcate land is using a measure called a hectare. Of course, it's bigger than an acre, right? So then an eighth piece of land will read 0.04
hectares.
Yes. So sometimes there are variations. It could be 0.045. It could be 0.040, depending on the exact size.
But that's why you taught us that the surveyor, you should involve a surveyor to make sure that you know that size.
Yes. But the average size of an eighth is 0.040.
Yes.
So if the title they're giving you reads, say, 2 hectares, just know that's a mother title. If they're sending you an eighth and the title they're giving you reads 2 hectares, know that's the mother title.
Oh my,
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's very important.
That's very helpful information.
Yes.
It's very out there. It's like, when somebody, you taught us that the first step to due diligence when buying land is, where is the title deed, right? So immediately somebody produces for you a title deed and it's written to run. Stop it from time.
Because that's the mother title. They're selling you an eighth, let it be 0.04.
Yes.
Of course, a lot of transactions are done with eighths,
Yes.
Finger 50 by 100. Very notorious in Kikuyu land.
80 by 40.
80 by 40 and 50 by 100. So the other property that I think I would advise tribers to avoid as much as possible, properties subject to succession.
Explain.
Now, we have laws in this country that govern how when people pass away, how should their property go to the people that they have left behind.
Okay.
And we have a very elaborate law called the law of succession. And it states that once somebody has passed on, you have to go to court and petition for something called letters of administration as the family who've been left behind and go ahead with the succession process and finally get a document called a certificate of confirmation of grant. And it's now through this process where you appoint the person in the family who will administer what has been left behind. This person is called an administrator.
Yes.
And so once you've done the entire process, this administrator now becomes authorized by the law to transfer the properties that have been left behind to the beneficiaries.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
And because I'm saying it's an elaborate process, for example, between the time you go to court and the time you get the certificate of confirmation of grant, it's the minimum amount of time you can take is maybe 7 months.
Okay.
And the reason why I say this is you first approach the court, you present the petition and say this and this person has passed on, and we are the people who've been left behind, maybe as the wife and children, and these are our identification documents.
Yeah.
After the court has verified the petition that you've been that you have presented in court and all the supporting documents, there's a notice that is put in the Kenya Gazette for a period of 30 days. And this period is just to say that some person AB has approached this court to be given letters of administration for this estate. If there's any objection, anyone could come forward between these 30 days and present their objection.
Yes.
Now, these ones happen a lot when maybe they are co-wives, a child born out of wedlock, and their mom wants to come forward. Yes. Yeah. So then, even assuming that there was no one to object, after the 30 days, now you are given those letters of administration. Once you get the initial letters of administration, you're supposed to wait for about 6 months to go and ask for confirmation of that, a confirmation of those letters.
Yes.
So between the 6 months, what you'll be doing, you'll be agreeing as a family who is getting what?
Yes.
Who is getting the plot at Muthaiga, who is getting motor vehicle ABC, who is getting shares in, in this company. So once you agree, you put together a schedule and say, Agatha will get this, Wanjiro will get this, Wamuyu will get this. And then now after the 6 months, that's now when you go and present to court and say, this is what we have agreed as a family. Then now once you present that in court, the court gives you now that document called certificate of confirmation of grant. And now when you get that document is now when you can actually go to the land registry and do the transfers. Such that now the title stop reading the person who's passed on and now starts reading the person that inherited.
Yeah.
And you can see it's quite an elaborate process.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course it takes time, money.
Yeah. Emotion.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of times 6-7 months is the minimum. Sometimes it takes years. You have estates in this country, especially for the big wigs.
Yeah.
They've gone for over 20 years, honestly speaking.
Yeah.
So because of that process of succession, some people want shortcuts. So there's someone who their father passed on 2 months ago and want to sell the land. Acha nikuzie shamba. And for you, Agatha, because you knew that family and you know it, you knew truly that this property belongs to that family.
Yeah.
You'll be very tempted to take
based on trust.
It's on trust.
When last time you taught us that land and trust should not be in the same sentence.
What you'll be forgetting is that because succession has not been done, you cannot verify that the person, maybe it's the second born in that family that is selling you this piece of land. How do you verify that they're the people entitled to this piece of land?
Yeah.
What if they sell it to you and you give them the money? First of all, they can't give you the title.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the legal authority to transfer the title to you. What if 2 or 3 years later they finalize succession and they say, no, this property is actually entitled to this and this person?
What you know?
You do not have a claim. You have to go after that person to give you back your money. God forbid if it's someone who, is not in a position to refund you that money.
And I've just thought that most of the time when you think about it, let's say it's a dad, right, who has passed on.
Yes.
Most of the time you'll think that, because he died 2 months ago and this is such prime piece of land, let me buy it very fast from this second born child, for example, so that another person doesn't take it. Like the last time we talked about where there's like a rush. And that leads to a lot of trouble.
You really need to stay away from properties that have not been undergone through succession.
Yes.
For sure. The other kind of land that maybe I would want tribers to stay away from, or even if they go ahead with it, they need to be very intentional and very careful.
Yes.
properties that are charged. What do I mean by properties that are charged? I may have my plot of land, say, somewhere at Kitengela.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I fall into financial troubles and I go to my bank, say KCB, and tell them, give me this and this amount. I can give you this title as security.
Yes.
So there's a document that gets registered called a charge.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, sometimes you can find that I'm not able to finance, to repay off this loan.
Yes.
And the bank is coming for my property. And I decide, instead of this bank auctioning my property, let me find someone else to buy it, so that I use the money they are paying me to pay the bank, right? Then the bank doesn't have the title. Then I transfer this property.
Yeah. And also you realize that what you've just described is something that a lot of people, you just bank on luck and time, in that this person you're selling to will give you the money fast enough before the bank comes. And then you, as the seller, you're caught in the middle of scandal.
Yes. I mean, a million things could go wrong in that kind of arrangement.
Yes.
1,000,001.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because one, between the time you give me this money, and you see now you're giving me money on the basis of trust, the bank will never release a title that has not been paid for.
Yes.
In full.
It will never.
Let me tell you, we are going to discuss that too, because we are also going to talk about mortgages, right? Banks are in the business of making money.
True.
Not helping people.
Yes.
And people need to realize that.
Yeah.
The banks never really they don't take risks.
Yes.
Again, I'm telling you, even if the bank were financing you today to buy a property, they wait until that property reads your name and that charge in their favor has been registered. That's the time they make payments. They don't risk their money.
Yes.
They do not risk their money.
And we should learn from banks, because I mean, banks are in the business of finance, right? And there are reasons why they protect themselves so much, right?
Yes.
So think about it. This big institution, many big institutions, they will never jeopardize their financial well-being. But here you are, trusting your neighbor. Who are you?
So there are a lot of things that could go wrong in that arrangement, including me taking the money from you, paying it to the bank, and the bank not giving me the title for one reason or the other. Maybe my interest had accrued to levels where even if I pay this amount, I'm not able to fully discharge this title.
Yes.
And many other 1 million things that could happen in that transaction.
Yes.
So if you want to be protected, ensure if you're going into that kind of arrangement, first, know it's a risk you're taking on.
Yes.
Right?
Clearly.
Understand it's a risk you're taking on.
Yeah.
2, be represented by a competent conveyancing advocate.
Yes.
Because then they have done this kind of transaction and they know how to mitigate these risks. So there are documents called undertaking. So you can request the bank to give you an undertaking that once this and this amount is paid to this and this account, you will give us the title document within this and this. There's a way lawyers know how to go around to mitigate that risk.
Yes.
So that's not the kind of transaction to do it Kenyeji or, at your local.
Yeah.
It is not. It is not.
Yeah.
And lastly, still now on that acquisition of the process of acquisition of land is, do not buy land that has debts. What do I mean by land that has debts? There's a lot of land, especially in municipalities in Nairobi like this one. You'll find a property like this one we are sitting on. There are land rates that are payable to the government on it.
Yes.
There's land rent that is payable to the government on it.
Okay.
There are water meters and electricity meters that are accumulating money every day.
Yeah.
So before you buy a property like this, those are 4 things you must ensure that we have been fully paid for. Ensure land rates have been settled to date.
Yes.
Land rent has been settled to date. The meters, every amount of water that has been used has been settled, and electricity has been settled. Why? If you ignore that aspect of it, you might take on property with so much debt.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, with the government, when the government comes to enforce a payment, you can't even say, by the time
I didn't know
land rates were accruing, I am the one who won't be.
Yeah.
The government does not whoever is on it right now, wewe ndiye tunadai.
Yeah, it is your responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't get the person who is selling it to you to settle those debts, you inherit them with the property. You inherit them with the property. So it will really beat sense if you're making a purchase and thinking that you're getting a very big deal, a very good deal.
Yeah.
Then going to City Hall, you just here in town, getting the land rates built and it's in millions.
Yeah. It's possible.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I remember last time you told us of a guy who bought a property around Lavington, and those bills accumulated so fast that the value of the bills were higher than the property itself. Yeah.
Yes. For those ones, Kwanzaa included service charge.
Yeah.
So of course, on top of what we are talking about, the land rates, the land rent, the electricity bill, the water bill,
then the service
charge.
Yeah.
So those 5 items, you don't get them paid by the previous owners. You inherit that debt.
Yeah.
So woe unto you when you go and get the invoices or the government comes knocking, asking for the rates to be cleared. So do not buy property that has debts. Ensure that all debts regarding that piece of property have been cleared.
Yeah.
Get the receipts for that current year or the clearance certificate for that current year.
Yeah.
So very, very important. So those ones, so basically those are the ones that cover the vacant land.
Yeah.
For the apartments, of course, it will have to go back to the same video we talked about. Do the paperwork, base your payments on milestone, do your due diligence. Ensure you have a definite completion date on those.
Make sure your default clauses are very clear. It is not. I still remember when you said that. This apartment is going to be completed when the architect said so.
What?
No, it is not when the architect says so. It is by 18th November 2024.
Yes.
So that when you take someone to court, it's like, because I even remember you saying, for avoidance of any doubt. This was such a nice video. People need to go and watch it.
Yeah. So you really... So that basically covers acquisition. Then this is where now you are acquiring a property which you are financing, or rather you have the money, or rather you're paying on installments.
Yes.
Now there are other kinds of purchases where you're getting finance.
Yes. By the bank.
It can be the bank.
Yeah.
It can be a circle. It can be your employer.
Yeah.
We have employees. We have employers that have such schemes to help their employees acquire homes. So you'll find that they have such kind of a mortgage facility or product for them.
True.
So it doesn't matter who is financing you. The other thing, I don't know if we mentioned it in our last video, the fact that a financial institution tells you you qualify for this amount does not mean you afford it. And you as a financial coach, I know you know that
I know that very well, yes. Yes, because I have literally less than a month ago, I met someone. She came for a coaching session, and she told me that they took up this mortgage with a spouse of 18 million, and then now they've been paying it for the last 2 years, and one of them lost their job, and now they can't continue paying for this mortgage, and now they have to go to the bank and say, you guys, we need to relieve us of this thing, right? And so you see, they hadn't done the math. In the eventuality that one of us loses a job, can we still continue? So yes, you're right.
Yes. Yeah. So the fact that the bank tells you qualify for a mortgage of 10 million doesn't necessarily mean you can afford it.
Yet.
Why? Because mortgages can be very expensive in a way.
Yeah.
And not to mean that there are people can't afford them.
Yeah.
But then it helps for you to have done the maths and appreciated. You remember when we were doing the calculations when you're buying an apartment and then there are closing costs, some duty, there's legal fees, there's service charge, deposit, there's a and you said by the time you're going to buy an apartment for 8 or 10 million, have an extra million, the closing cost.
Yes, I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
Have budget another extra 1-point-something million for the closing cost because that's exactly how much it totals to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The same thing for a mortgage. Before you sign that letter of offer, do the maths.
Yes.
Do the maths. See that you have the budget to go through with it.
Yes.
Because one, also you need to understand how a mortgage transaction works. As I've told you, banks never pay hourly.
Yeah.
They only pay once transfer has been done. So say our bank, the one that we are using for for illustration purposes, it's called ABC Bank.
Yes.
Actually, there's a bank. XYZ.
Yeah.
I don't think we have an XYZ bank.
Yeah.
So XYZ Bank, you're the customer at XYZ Bank. You say, hey, there's this home that I've seen. I would like to get it as my home. Are you able to finance it? And the XYZ Bank gives you an offer letter. Before you commit and sign that offer letter and go ahead with the process, sit down. Whether with your lawyer, with your accountant, sit down and do the maths.
Yes.
See, is this really a deal worth taking on?
Yes.
And appreciate first. So the lawyer may guide you with the process how it looks.
Yes.
Because again, sometimes people think, I'll approach the bank today, they'll give me an offer tomorrow, and by next month I'm moving into that house.
No.
It never works like that.
Yes.
It never works like that because there's a whole process that goes into it. The bank has to do, even after they have evaluated you and seen that, you have the credit score to take up that mortgage. They also do their due diligence. They look at that property, they do their due diligence, they engage a valuer, they get a professional valuation done. And all these, everything that the bank is doing in this process is at your cost.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
This due diligence is at your cost. It will be done by them, but employed by them, but at your cost.
You'll be billed.
The invoice will come to you.
Yes.
They'll do valuation.
Yeah.
And confirm the valuation is taking out. The credit assessment. They'll do it still on your cost.
Yeah.
They'll engage lawyers to do the conveyancing aspect of it. So this is now ensuring that this property is transferred from the seller to your name and a security in their favor is registered. Again, all the lawyers' fees,
they're yours.
They're yours.
Yeah.
The stamp duty, yours. Registration, yours. Everything that pertains that process, it's yours. Then now after that security has been registered, now the documents are sent to the bank. The bank checks, verifies everything, confirms the interests are protected. That's when they make the payment. And this could go for months.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And if there are challenges, for example, when we had problems with Nairobi properties in the process of them being onboarded on Adisasa or being digitized, the transactions that took over a year. Okay.
Yeah.
So don't go to the banks today thinking that
tomorrow you'll be moving in. Yeah. You need a plan.
Yes, you need a plan.
Yeah.
You'll cater your rent as that process is going on. Just so that you don't get very frustrated.
Yes.
Because clients get frustrated.
Yeah.
And only because they didn't appreciate the process that goes into these.
And that's why, again, you even said that it's important to come for a consultation session with a conveyancing lawyer.
Yes.
So that they tell you, they set your expectations, they manage your expectations, so that when, it's best if somebody tells you from the beginning, this process is likely to take a year.
Yes.
Then you're like, okay. This is what I need to do to survive on a year.
Yeah,
as opposed to just approaching the bank and then you think, by next month, I should be in this house. And next month arrives and you're like, oh my God.
And sometimes also we have cases, because I do a lot of security perfection myself in the line of my work. Sometimes we get challenges with, there are people at the bank who work for the banks, and here I'm calling them out, called relationship managers.
Yes.
Sometimes they can be very misleading.
Yes.
Some maybe deliberately, maybe for not knowing better.
No, I realized that, yes, according to the bank, relationship managers, yes, are supposed to help you. But at the end of the day, relationship managers have targets.
They have goals. That's where I was coming. They have targets. So they'll not tell you something that might make you think twice or not want to
commit. Yes.
So there will be a tendency to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think if only you can sit down with an independent, someone who does not have an interest in the transaction, sit down with a conveyancing lawyer who does security and ask them, honestly, what am I looking at? What is the process?
Yes.
What are the costs? What are the timelines? Pay 5,000 for a 30-minute consultation, but that 5,000 will save you a lot of headache.
Yes.
When you're trying to think, is someone playing with me?
Yes.
Am I being conned?
Why
is it taking so long? Why am I being asked for more money by the bank's lawyer?
Yeah.
How am I paying the bank's lawyer's fees? It will save you a lot of headache in that process.
Yeah.
So again, when you're getting a property through financing, appreciate the process and appreciate the cost.
Yes.
Cost of credit can be expensive.
which as much
of credit can be expensive.
Yeah. And in the same breath, when you say appreciate the process, last video you taught us, doesn't go wrong, it starts wrong. You remember?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't go wrong. In these things doesn't go wrong, it starts wrong. Yes. Do it right.
So yeah, appreciate that process. But also, just before we move to from mortgages to the other part where now we'll be talking about we'll still be talking about acquisition. But the other thing which now kind of goes away from acquisition is sometimes you get a mortgage. Or even you already own the piece of property, but you need some financing either for a business you're trying to upscale, or you have a medical emergency, or whatever it could be. And you go to the bank and you give them your title, the one that you already own. You give it to them and you tell them to advance you certain facilities with the security of this, on the security of this title. Now, sometimes, and shit happens a lot of times. During COVID, we had people who were retrenched. A lot of them. A lot of people who lost their jobs. A lot of people who got pay cuts. A lot of people who went on unpaid leaves. And those are kind of circumstances can affect you so bad that you're not able to regularly keep up with your payments to the bank.
Okay.
And again, say the banks are in the business of making money.
Yes.
Granted.
Yes.
For sure, they're in the business of making money. They're not there to help you.
Yes.
So sometimes, shit happens or unfortunate things happen. You could lose your job. Something could happen to your business. You could fall into a medical emergency. You could get sick even yourself. You're not able to keep up with your payment obligations to the bank. And again, we're saying banks are in the business of making money. Granted, it's their business. You can't stop them from making money from their main source of business. And their main source of income is interest. So if you realize that you are unable to keep up with your payment obligations to the bank or to any financial institution, SACCO, any other financial institution that has granted you a loan, the wisest thing to do is to approach the bank on your own. Don't wait for them to come looking for you. Take yourself to the bank. And it sounds crazy because who takes themselves to the classifier? Take yourself to the bank. Why am I saying take yourself? If you approach the bank early enough, when you realize I'm not able to keep up these payments, if you approach your bank early enough, have a sit down with your relationship manager, have a sit down with the branch manager, talk to them, tell them my payment obligations are these. And so far, I have been keeping up with my payments. But now, this and this has happened, and I'm not able to keep up with these payments. Of course, the bank is not going to cancel your debt. That one you can forget.
That one you can forget.
Forget.
It's not debt forgiveness. And that statement is important. I've had people ask me, if at Agatha, I finished university 10 years ago, I've never paid my help loan, are they going to forget? It's not going to happen.
No.
It's not. It's part.
It will not.
It's part of being an adult. You have to pay back debts. Yes.
So the bank will no matter how much of a crisis, it doesn't matter if you got cancer. It doesn't matter if you're going to, it will not cancel. The bank will find a way of accommodating you to the extent that they're able to accommodate you. But rarely. And I'm saying this having worked for a bank where we were doing debt recovery. The bank will not forgive debt. They might give you time to restructure yourself. They might give you time to redeem yourself. But
they might reduce your interest. They might change, because I've seen it also. I've dealt with clients who have credit card debt. Credit card debt is like financial suicides. Credit card debt is that bad. It accumulates day and night, right? So I've had clients who are in panic mode because they have so much credit card debt. And I've told them, even if you hide, the bank will come for you. Even if you hide. So I've advised clients, go to the bank, present yourself and tell them, hey, what happened? I lost my job. My credit card has ballooned to this level. What can I do? And for example, I even recently had a client who the bank restructured their credit card debt so that she's paying on reducing balance, right? And they removed the charges that they've charged her all these years. They removed such charges and then they need on a reducing balance. And then before she went, she was meant to be paying around like 250,000 per month to that credit card debt. So the bank said, okay, we understand your situation. Now you can be paying 30K per month. So see, now that is manageable.
Exactly. And that's the same thing that should apply to banks. So you realize you're not able to keep up with your take yourself, go sit down with your credit man, sit down with your relationship managers, sit down with the people at credit, talk to them.
Yes.
They're human after all. We're saying they're in the business of making money, but they are also human. So sit down with them, tell them this has happened. Either I have lost my job, I've had this medical emergency, or this has happened, my business has collapsed. Tell me how you can help me. Because I still want to repay your loan, but I'm not able to keep up the way. So you see, in that instance where you're saying that person was supposed to be repaying 250,000. Assuming this is the case here, you're able to say, I'm not able to pay this 250,000 every month, but maybe you can give me a grace period. Say 3 months, say 6 months. If there's a if you believe there's a possibility of you reviving whatever it is, either getting another job, reviving your business, disposing another property, whatever it is that you need to do. Either ask for a grace period or ask to be reduced, the payment obligation to be reduced, so that if you are paying 200,000, maybe they allow you to be paying 100,000 for a certain period of time until you get back to your feet. It's called restructuring. Approach the bank to do restructuring. But now a lot of people, what happens is that
avoidance mechanism.
Yes, and it's not funny because it's sad, but we are here to know how to do better. So rather than sitting down and assuming that the problem does not exist, because if you do that, the bank also has means. They have means
to get you.
They have means not even to get you. Here they have a security. They'll not come hunting you down at River Road. They will not. So what will the bank do? They'll wait. You've defaulted for 1 month. Actually, the law allows them up to 1 month. You've defaulted for one. Like there's a payment that was due on, say, 9th of June. It's 9th July. You have not
paid.
Not paid. They are given. They are allowed by the law to start serving notices to let you know that they're auctioning your property. So there are certain notices, and of course, the lawyer, a good conveyancing lawyer, or even a litigation lawyer, because also litigation lawyers do a lot of those kind of cases. There are certain notices that the bank is obligated to give someone if they're trying to recover their money by auctioning their property. So there's a 90 days notice that they have to give you, telling you to redeem yourself, pay back the amount, and There's a way those notices are drafted. From there, there's another notice, and then after that other notice, they're allowed to engage an auctioneer to start the recovery process. You want to avoid that process as much as you can. Why am I saying you need to avoid it? Again, I'm saying the bank will not come looking for you at River Road or tracking you down.
The bank will avoid such God.
Will do the easiest thing. And some of the easiest thing is when you did the facilities. See, there's a PO box you noted there. They'll go write a letter, address it to that PO box, post it. To them, they have served you that notice. They will not come looking for you. So whether you got that notice or not, it's your business. You gave them that PO box, you should be able to be responsible for it. Even address to that PO box reaches you. So they'll do the easiest things. So they'll serve you the notices, whether you get it or not. That's your problem. So most people end up not even getting those notices. By the time now they're auction, you later realize when the property is already in the newspapers, because at some point now there's some gazette, there's some advertisement that has to be put in the newspaper, or they are also mandated, the auctioneer that's trying to exercise the sale, they are mandated to put a notice on the property itself, showing that property is under auction. So a lot of people realize when that happened, because sometimes you have nosy neighbor, so if you run to the bank at that time, they may not be very gracious.
I mean, look at what you've made us do in the name of getting to you. Like, you should have just, it makes sense now.
So by the time it gets to that, you may not be able to redeem yourself. And probably go ahead with the auction. And you know how much you'll lose in that auction. So the law allows the bank to sell up to 75% of the value of the market value of a property. Because I know we are not expecting the bank to get someone willing to buy for the market value. They may not get it. And they're interested to recover their money. What will they do? The bank allows them to sell at a minimum of 75%. So the bank will, the quickest bid, bora inafikisha your threshold, they will sell.
Yeah.
Without thinking
So
twice.
maybe your property is valued at 15 million. But you owe the bank what, 5 million?
Yes.
And the value of the property is 15. You owe the bank 5 million. The bank will sell it at 5 million.
No, not sell it at 5 million. The law makes it mandatory for them to sell it for at least 75% of
At least 75%.
Yes.
Okay.
At least 75% of
Not
the
less than that.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So if your property is, say, worth 20 million, 75% of that is, I don't know how to do math.
Yeah.
But whatever amount that is,
Yeah.
that's what they'll sell it at.
Okay.
But do not forget that all the costs leading up to this point, they are payable by you, not by them.
They will still bill you.
Yes. They'll deduct from the proceeds.
Yes.
So they'll deduct the auctioneer's fees.
Yeah.
The auctioneer's
Yeah.
They'll deduct all the costs for advertising, putting it in the newspaper, everything. They will deduct. If they engage lawyers to serve the notices, they will deduct all that legal fees. All the amount of money, and sometimes it can be in millions, all the amount of money involved in that process, it will be deducted from this. So even where there would be something to give back to you, most times there's barely anything. And assuming you had gone to court to try and, because a lot of people
Go to court, to try and prevent that process. Yeah.
if you went to court and lost, they are lawyers defended that suit. What are you talking about? Is getting deducted here. So sometimes there's barely anything left to give back to you, and sometimes there's even what you're left indebted, and then still come after what is on top.
I think this whole process, however horrific it is, it also reminds me something that I keep telling the people I coach. I keep telling people, for me, my definition of an adult is responsibility. Adulting equals responsibility. Please stop playing these avoidance games. Stop avoiding these things. Like, do it, show up, do what you need to do.
So that's why we're saying,
Yeah.
not assume the problem does not because it will not go away.
Yeah.
Just because you are at your local, taking 3-4 years to forget your problems, they are not going away.
And it's,
Approach the bank, ask for restructuring. Now, sometimes you're not able to get restructuring.
Yes.
Because either you tell the bank, if you are supposed to be paying 250,000, and maybe you're suggesting to be taking that,
that's not possible.
loan goes to, it's for like 50 million. Oh, before you pay us off.
Yeah.
So
Your credit profile may not allow.
the bank will refuse. They're entitled to refuse. So what are your other options if that happens? So you've done the responsible thing. You've taken yourself to the bank. You've let them understand your situation. You've tried to get them to restructure. They have refused. And rightfully so. What other options do you have?
Okay.
You can request the bank to allow you to sell this property by private treaty. What does that mean? You ask for an opportunity before the bank sells it at the auction. Try to get a buyer
Yourself. Oh, okay, yeah.
And this is very nice because if you look for a buyer yourself, you way property.
You're likely, yes.
You know,
Yeah.
you can go hard and get someone willing to buy it at
100% value. Yeah, yes.
And now when the bank allows you that, of which now the transaction will look like, you know what we were talking about, buying a property that's subject to a charge. Because now if these people, everyone does their role well, so selling and the person buying involves a lawyer, does protects themselves, this sale can easily go through, right? And if it goes through, because you've sold your property for 100% of the value, you are able to pay whatever it is that you owed to the bank. And if there were any expenses that, probably there won't be any expenses that would have been incurred. Maybe the default interest during the time when you are trying to sell off this property. So you're still able to pay what is owed to the bank and retain something. And even do something with your life. You know, help it, use it to, help you get back on your feet. But if you let the bank auction your property, different.
Yes.
Sometimes also, which I really don't recommend. I think for me, what I would recommend, try restructuring. If you're able to get a reasonable restructuring figures, work with that. If you're not, try to go for a private treaty. But sometimes you're desperate enough where you can't even get audience with the bank.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes it's gotten to those levels where they cannot even give you audience.
Yes.
In that case, you're allowed to go to court. One, confirm if the bank has followed the process of auction. The whole elaborate process that has to be followed. So if there's any stage that was skipped, which some banks are notorious, what do we? Not mentioning me. If you're able to find a loophole in their process, it can help you buy time.
Yes.
Because the bank will tell them the court will rectify.
Yes.
So then they start the process afresh.
Yes.
So they have to do another 90 days notice, 10 days notice. Then there's the auctioneer, and there's a notice that the auctioneer is supposed to give. You can use that time to redeem yourself.
Yes.
Sometimes going to court can help. One, if there's a loophole we can use. And sometimes people even go knowing there's no loophole. But it's because you're thinking, if only can get a 2 weeks window, I know something I can do. So you go to court knowing you do not have a case, but you're not going to win. You are going to buy time. And as it sounds, sometimes people have to do what they
have to do. Yeah, you have to do what you have to do.
I think the other very important thing to know is if you intend to own property, buy it in your name. Do not use proxies. For example, I see people, especially people in diaspora, sometimes there's a tendency to buy property in the names of someone here. So someone maybe buys a property in their mother's name, hoping that property is theirs.
Yes.
A lot of challenges could come with that, because even though your siblings know that you're the one who bought this property, if God forbid your mother passes on, this property will be up for grabs by the rest of your siblings.
Yes.
According to the law of succession, of course, the guidelines that are followed. So do not use proxies. Try as much as possible, if you intend for the property to ultimately benefit you, buy it in your name or in the name of your company.
Yes.
Don't use proxies.
Okay.
The other important thing to note is never, and this one should be put on a billboard, never initiate a transaction if you haven't figured out how you will complete it.
Yes.
Why am I saying that? There are a lot of times you find people committing to a transaction or to a purchase, and they sign the paperwork, they pay the deposit, and they are very optimistic that they'll finalize. Maybe it's a transaction where you're paying purchase price in installments, or even assuming you're not paying installments, is this something that you thought you could finalize? Then something happens and you're not able to finalize. Again, we say a lot of things happen. You could lose your job, you could lose your business, you could discover something about this property and decide you do not want to go ahead with it. Or you could commit thinking that there's a institution that would give you financing, maybe a bank. Then they refuse to approve the facility for you. So a lot of things could happen. And so that you're not caught up in those things, plan your purchase from A to Z before you commit, before you pay a deposit. Why am I saying that? Cancelling a transaction as a purchaser can be very punitive. Most agreements, most standard agreements say if you're a purchaser, you're buying, and you default such that the sale does not complete, you forfeit 10% of the purchase price.
Yes.
And 10% can be very substantial. Literally, there's a transaction I'm doing right now where the consideration on the purchase price is 68 million. And now when we're doing the default clauses, do you know if this sale does not go through because of the purchaser, then forfeit 6.8 million.
Yeah.
That is a very substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
And there's some agreements recently I've seen, especially for apartments, where they put that percentage to 15%. So you can imagine, we are saying 6.8 million if it's very
high.
So you can imagine if it were 15%.
Yes.
So, and again, it's even worse if you're buying an apartment where the agreement says, which I've seen, a lot of agreements say that if the purchaser is not able to complete and the seller is forced to cancel, they'll forfeit 10% or 15%, whichever the case is, whichever has been provided by that agreement. But on top of that, if they had paid something on top of 10%, say assuming they had made a 50% or 70% payment, the 10 or 15% will be forfeited. Then what is on top of that will be refunded to this purchaser after that unit has been resold.
Right? It takes 5 years, 10 years.
What if it's never resold?
Their properties,
What if nobody is interested in that apartment?
Yeah.
What if it's at some corner where there's no lighting and everyone comes to view it and they're like, I don't want this one?
Yeah.
What will happen to you if this apartment is never resold? You'll not get your money back and you cannot even sue these people.
Yeah.
a very good case against you.
Yes, yes.
So, of course, so we are saying, think through the whole transaction from A to Z before you commit, before you pay the deposit.
Yes, have a plan.
Lastly, and we are not really able to finalize this conversation because it's a lot. Haven't covered maintenance, haven't covered the disposal, but these are conversations we'll keep having. But most importantly, and this is for Nairobi landowners, your property needs to be on Adisasa. Why do I say that? If your property is not on Adisasa and you're in Nairobi right now, you cannot transact using that property because Nairobi has been digitized.
Okay.
So there are titles that are called RTA titles and GLA titles. GLA titles are mostly in those Lavington areas. RTA titles, there are some that are in Kasarani, Kilimani, Kileleshwa, Karen. All those areas, they have RTA titles. Those ones are supposed to undergo a process called conversion, and this has to be done through an advocate, through an advocate's account on Adisasa. And if it's titles called RLA titles, mostly those areas of Donholm, those areas of Embakasi, they have those RLA titles. There's a process called enumeration that's supposed to be done on Adisasa so that these properties are transactable. Otherwise, the next time you want to sell a property quickly or get a loan on it, it could delay you a lot if you haven't made your transaction, if you haven't made your title transactable.
Okay. And how to make the title transactable with properties in Nairobi is registering on Adisasa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So, and we will, the next time we sit down with Wamuyu, we will have that whole conversation on what is Adisasa, how do you actually transfer, who do you need to contact, and everything in between. But of course, at the moment, if you still need help with that, you can always call, email Wamuyu, look for her and she'll help you through the process or any other process that involves buying a property in Kenya or in Nairobi.
Yes.
And so with that, thank you, Wamuyu.
You're welcome.
As always, we keep learning, and that is why we keep doing these things as often as possible. If you have any questions about anything she mentioned throughout this conversation, anything that is related to investing or buying property in Kenya, please leave it in the comment section. Those comments are very useful to us because those comments are the ones that inform us what should we talk about next, right? So we don't wake up and guess. We are creating this content to benefit you, so kindly engage us. All right? And with that, it's been awesome. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this video to a relative, to a dad, to a mom who needs this kind of content. Okay? And see you next time. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.